From California to Canada, New York to England, Dubai to Finland, we have all been affected by this global pandemic. While sports have of course taken a backseat to all of this, we are a strong community. Please join me on this podcast world tour as I talk to strongman fans, amateurs, and pros from all around the globe. Quarantine training, reminiscing about old competitions, and much more will be discussed. And if you would like to be on the podcast, please reach out to me here on YouTube or on Instagram at EastWolfStyle. Thank you all for listening, and please stay safe. On this episode of the podcast, we head to Finland and talk to Reddit user Killmore. Now, while he does some training himself, and he has trained at Yoko Ahola's gym, we are mostly discussing the impact Ahola, Riku Kiri, and other Finnish strongmen have had on the sport. We're gonna go back in time and talk about the late 90s and early 2000s. And just a heads up, this was recorded on March 30th, before any drama or major competition announcements were made. It's just an error on my part for uploading these out of order, and I do apologize for that. With that being said, please enjoy the episode. Yeah, we could talk about like how you got into the sport, or if you are competing.
Not competing, but fan of the sport, and I do train strongman, so I haven't competed yet, but we can talk about those. Yeah.
And we talked on Reddit a bit. You said you trained at Yoko Ahola's gym, correct?
Yeah, he opened a new gym a year and a half ago in my hometown, as I am, and I trained there. Okay, it's like my secondary gym. My main gym is like almost next door to me, so that's convenient. But I also go to his gym.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I actually didn't know that he was still training or not. I know Yoko Ahola, not Yoko Ahola, Yanni Virtanen, he kind of stopped after a couple of years after winning his title, right?
Yeah, he was like, I think he was in World Strongest Man finals in like I think 2006 or something like that during the IFSA split. So he had an opportunity to get there, but that's basically the last of his appearances. And then he quit the sport. And I read an interview where he said like he's been to the gym like 10 times because he was so goal driven. He had this thing to win and thing to grow and go forward. And when that was gone, he was just lifting weights and suddenly thought, "What am I doing here?"
So, with that being said, is the sport still kind of like smallish, or has it, grown after having two Finnish champions?
It was, I think, the peak was around the 90s, because with Ilkka Nummisto and Markus Huonovirta having created the sport in Finland and really promoted it far, and then Riku Kiri having some success being on podiums, and then with Yoko Ahola and Janne Virtanen winning, there was a real peak. There was an opportunity to TV time, and it was a good time for Yoko and Janne to make some money, just public appearances and all that. The early 2000s was hard for the sport in many countries in many ways, and it did affect in Finland, and it's not as big now. So basically the global growth of strongman hasn't really reached Finland yet. I'm not exactly sure what it's about. We do have the Finnish Strongest Man competition. It's on TV, and the Strongman Champions League, which is one of these sort of
kind of like subdivision.
Comparable to Giants Live, but subdivisions. Yeah, there's several people, and the guy who runs it, Ilkka Kinnunen, is Finnish, and he does run some contests in Finland, and so on. But somehow the mainstream attention is still avoiding the sport.
Wow, that's kind of interesting. I thought, like you said, after having two champions that it would pick up. But, I do agree with you that in many countries it did, World's Strongest Man did kind of take a hit in the 2000s. I'm not sure what exactly it was, but the hype seemed to kind of die down until like, until Marius kind of showed up and started dominating.
I think there was a lot of the IFSA split hurt the sport a lot more than the spectators can actually see. Because is leaving were the guys who were organizing the competitions and running the show behind the scenes. And when that know-how went away and they tried their own thing, which never really gained ground, that led to a time when the promotion just sort of died down for a bit.
Yeah, the IFSA split definitely did hurt them. You could say it kind of took the fans away, but I don't even think IFSA was actually even broadcasted in America, oddly enough. I've only ever seen like UK versions of IFSA on like Eurosports on YouTube. I've never seen it here in the States.
And I think one of the years, according to Sudruna Savitkas, one of the years was only broadcast in Russia.
Yeah,
that was the only broadcast deal they had. Yeah, I think you can find it somewhere on the depths of the internet with Russian commentary, and with I think the UK version, and then that's pretty much it. So for all the attempt and all the money they pour into it, and all the sort of show and flash they put into the events, they certainly didn't get the eyes on the product that they really needed.
Like I said, IFSA, I enjoyed watching the IFSA for what it was, but reading more into like the history, it's just they couldn't find advertisers on their side. I mean, like you said, all the know-how and all the guys who have been putting on worlds for years went over to IFSA, but they just couldn't find the money for sponsorships. It was just extremely hard for them to do that, and that's why they couldn't pay the athletes. And a lot of the guys started going back to World's Strongest Man, I think in like 2007, because they weren't getting paid by IFSA.
Yeah, I think that's what basically they had ambitious plans and they had this for 2-3 years, and then find the sponsors. It'll all add up, but they didn't find the sponsors, and then they run out of money. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, really, because it's something. There are some ifs in the sport, and that's one of the biggest ones. It's like the titles are from the 2000s. Who would have won what if they'd been in the same division?
Honestly, yeah, history is it's funny the way things work out. Kaz being banned in the 80s, the IFSA split, Thor not wearing a suit in 2014. It's interesting how things play out.
Yeah, and then the legendary 1990 when the contest was in Finland, the last event, the sprint with the bricks on your back, which was kilos of bricks or something. It was like ridiculously light, and it was, what was it, 300 meters? What was the dash?
Yeah.
And Odie Wilson had like massive leading points, and then just lost because he couldn't run, which was I was 10 years old, and I was loving the sport. I was watching it with my dad, and I was like the world's biggest John Paul Sigmarsson fan. He was my idol, and I loved watching him win. But even the 10-year-old kid me watching that on TV, I thought, that's not right.
I'm a new fan, but I went back and I watched, the old stuff. I'm like, that's crazy. A dash with bricks on your back. I'm like, I definitely still believe that Odie is the strongest man who never won the title. And it was unfortunate that in 91 he had back issues, so he couldn't really do as well as he should have, and then he passed away.
It was really his peak in 90, and then he never really got the second chance. And it was he's definitely on the list, like Derek Poundstone and Riku Kiri, from the ones who definitely had the strength, but for reason or another didn't get the title.
Oh yeah, Riku Kiri was another one. I love the battles between Riku Kiri, Herod Battenhorst, and Magnus Ver, but Riku was another one who seemed like kind of unfortunate, always getting injured when he had a shot at the podium.
Jouko Ahola talked about that when I went to Pioneer Training Day about a year ago. He held this kind of strongman training camp, and I was there, and he told the stories every now and then there. And basically the thing was they trained at the same time, and Jouko Ahola and Janne Virtanen, they trained together, and they trained the events. That was one of the things that Jouko actually brought to the sport, is the pedantic skill in the events was his weapon. Mm-hmm. And Riku Kiri only trained strength. His strength levels, basically he deadlifted like 400, and if he had been pushed harder, he would have lifted more. static strength levels would be enough to sort of hang it with the guys these days.
Yeah.
Which in the 90s he was way ahead of everybody there, but he never trained the events, and Yoko and Janne tried to get him to come over, just come and train. They got all the equipment. You can try them, get to feel them. Sometimes Riku would drop by and say hi, and then just go away, wouldn't train. And then come competition time, he just push all that raw strength into the events, like car lift, the car flip, and all that, and something would break. Wow. He won Europe's Strongest Man like 3 times, which was like 1 day competition. But then World's Strongest Man with several days, and he would just use all the strength, something would break.
Yeah, I was watching the 93 one, which is one of my favorites, and he broke an ankle, and he still tried to compete, but I'm just like, if you don't train the events, it looks easy to the untrained eye. Like a pole push looks simple enough, but there's so much technique, and you're right, if you don't train that, you can get severely injured.
Jouko Ahola said his favorite thought is that his quote from and Riku's body, I would have won 10 World's Strongest Man titles.
I believe that. But Yoko was impressive in his own right, being, much smaller than like guys like Magnus Samuelsson and still winning 2 titles.
Yeah, 125 kilos was his maximum weight that he managed to get, which is like 275 pounds.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get his weight up. His body just doesn't pack weight. But he's still mad.
So, like I said, he has a gym and he does seminars. Do you think he ever misses the sport? Because I know a couple years after he stopped competing, he was the equipment manager for World's Strongest Man.
He was invited into the first Arnold Strongman Classic in 2002. He talked about that, and he trained 6 weeks, and then thought, no, I'm not going to do this. This is too much. The strain and the sort of total focus. He had lost the spark. He had lost the sort of burning desire to do it, which you need to have to work out at that level. So I don't think he misses it all that much.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. Like Derek Poundstone's kind of the same way. It's just like has a family, has a career. It's just like you lose that spark. That's seems like it's kind of it.
Yeah, because the time that you have to couple of workouts a day and then just live the recovery. We can see it now when YouTube we watch Hafthor and Stoltmans and all that, and how much work it is just the eating. I have to managing all the food prep and all that. It's just so much work that if at any point in time you feel like I don't want to do this, you're not going to win.
Yeah. Just the eating alone looks like, a massive chore to do. And it's like, you're right. Yoko was, at this point would be like 100, almost like 150, 170 pounds, like less than the guys of today. That'd be insane to try and keep up with that.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things, of course, that he'd have to push extra hard. He's still a big guy. His back is still huge, and he's had some knee issues. Basically, has old knee issues from teenage years, and they've been operated. So he doesn't really move all that agile now, but he still lifts. He said that since he's once deadlifted 400 kilos, he just won't let it go under 300. So he's still got he's got massive deadlift even now.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always cool to see a lot of the guys from like back in the day still healthy, or at least still lifting in some capacity. Like we said, it's unfortunate that Odie had passed away, before his time. It's unfortunate, like guys like Jesse Marunde and Mike Jenkins. I always like to see guys who retire and they're still healthy, whether they're in the sport or not.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those. You also get these what ifs in the sport wise, and then you sort of always want this. You want to see good stories, and you want to see happy stories, and you want to hear these people telling of their time in the sport, and these people passing away is always it robs us of stories.
Like, even though Z's not officially retired, he's living his best life. Just he has a beautiful house that he's always posting from with like gorgeous scenery, and he just seems to be taking it day by day, and he put his money into a lot of things outside of the sport.
In Lithuania and all that. So there's a lot of things going on in his life. So I think he's apparently working out and coming back at some level at the end of the year, but he has a couple of those really big injuries. So how high he's gonna go is well remains to be seen.
Yeah, that's true. Like, as much as I'm a big Z fan and I would love to see him get his fifth, there's a part of me like that's kind of not realistic, especially with like the guys we have today. Prime Thor, Mateusz, Martins, the Stoltmans. I'm like, it's really hard to see Z come back for a fifth because, like you said, he has that really major injuries.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree, and I'm a big having the fifth title in combination of all the others he has. It would be a good crown, but it's really really unlikely, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, he still has, so many other accolades that's just like, well, five is great, but you still have two IFSAs, Fortissimus, and so many others of like,
Yeah, eight Arnolds is just
yeah, eight Arnolds.
madness. Yeah,
Speaking
it's
of eight
cool.
Arnolds, do
Yeah.
you ever believe that maybe Thor could reach that level? Tying Z with like eight Arnolds.
He would need, assuming they don't come, assuming he doesn't just win eight in a row. I'm not sure if he's planning on going on that long. He's a really, really big guy and he has a family, and I can see him having sort of an exit plan at some point. And that kind of, I think something Big C has said why he has had such a long career is because the weights weren't as big in the 2000s as they are now.
Hmm.
And you wouldn't have to be as strong and as sort of completely trained all the time and in every competition as you have to do now, which does lead me to think that Thor's career won't be as long as it would require to get those eight titles in Arnold's.
Yeah. I like to have that, that kind of what if, because you're right, Thor has been doing this for like 10 years, since like his early 20s. People talk about,
Yeah,
Thor's like so dominant, and like, yes, he absolutely is dominant, but the sport was definitely different when Z was in the sport. I mean, he wasn't really like pushing like, the 400 pounds until like, weighing 400 pounds to like the mid 2000s.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And one thing about Thor is we have this kind of distorted view of him because we've seen him grow from basically a rookie into a dominating champ because he was in the World's Strongest Man finals when he was starting out in the sport. In his like second, third year in the sport, he was on the podium. Third year, I think, something like that. He was really, really quickly into the sport. Usually, guys go like local competitions and there's giants lives, and then like heats in the World's Strongest Man, and then into the finals. But he just shot right up there, and then like the frustration that being on second and third on the podium. Yeah, but the guy was still like making it on the podium in the World's Strongest Man finals at the point of career where usually guys are trying to earn a pass in the Giants Live event. So there is that we've seen him do that. So maybe still he still has a lot of good years. I don't know.
Yeah, I absolutely do think he has a couple good years ahead of him. With the unfortunately with the outbreak, I mean, at least it seems like while he's still training, he does seem to be a bit more relaxed now. So I think that's definitely good for him. Because
Yeah,
honestly, when I first got into this sport, I was a big fan of Eddie Hall. But
mm,
after the last couple of years, his attitude has like really kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I started, I was in that Eddie Hall camp of, oh, Thor's a bad sport, this, that, and the third. And then, finally listening to a different perspective, I'm like, Thor's not all that Eddie's painting, him out to be. There's always two sides of a coin. And like, seeing Thor, like you said, come up from a rookie and working up to finally winning his podium, his title and stuff like that. It's like I feel for the guy when he's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. I need a break, things like that.
yeah, and last year after the injury was strongest man, and he lost like well some weight. He wasn't small man by no means, but obviously did him a world of good. just to relax a bit and just let his body unwind a little and all that. So there was definitely that. And yeah, Eddie, I was there was a point. I can't remember who it was. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Kelbeck who mentioned in some YouTube comment like years ago when Eddie was sixth in the finals, or maybe even a year before that. He said, "Watch out for this guy." I'm not exactly sure who said that, but I just remember seeing a comment, someone saying, "This is going to be a name in the future," and I kept an eye on Eddie after that. And that was pretty soon after that he started doing those really heavy deadlifts and all that, and it's been interesting to watch. But unfortunately, his "back up your bullshit" phrase doesn't really hold water anymore because now he just talks, but he doesn't compete. So. I know he's selling his brand and trying to get a name and trying to get clicks on his videos, but I do wish he would balance it a bit because now he just seems a bit mean sometimes.
Yeah, I get it's an act, and I've heard people obviously say, Eddie's a lovely guy outside of the YouTube persona and all of that, but like sometimes, and I get it, it's a brand and you have to get clicks on your videos, but sometimes the cattiness of, oh, beating my record by 1 kilo, is like pussy shit and things like that. It's like, you don't have to do that,
Yeah,
like,
because
you have a world record and no one could take that away from you. So it's just like, it's starting to rub me the wrong way, where it's kind of like, somebody made a joke on the Reddit saying, instead of Eddie the Beast Hall, it's Eddie Don't Forget About Me Hall, because he's bringing up, 2017 and the deadlift, and it's like, we know.
Yeah, although my view of that is, I mean, honestly, if I did something on that scale, I would be talking about it for the rest of my life. So I do get that. I mean, he's obviously very proud of it, and he should be. But yeah, basically using that to sort of push others down. That's what rubs me the wrong way.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. I never take away the fact that the 500 kilo, like, that's still one of the most amazing feats of all time. It's like you said, it's the punching down on the other athletes. When I'm just like, you don't even compete anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Because if he competed and he would draw eyes on the competition, he would be the guy people. That would be great for the sport. But now he's talking bad about guys who are active. He's hurting the sport with that. That's the thing that I don't really like.
I'm curious to see what happens when Eddie 2 comes out, if and when that ever comes out.
Oh yeah. There's been a lot. I really did enjoy that first one. It was a good story, and I do like the fact that there is a relevant sort of finishes to some storylines that the first set up, but we have to see what they're actually making.
Yeah, like I said, with everything, it kind of shuts down production of just a lot of things. So I think he was talking about maybe a summer release for this year, but who knows now? But I can't wait to actually see that, because he definitely is a compelling storyteller. I'll give him that.
Definitely, yeah. He knows how to sell a story. That's definitely what one of his best skills. I like the book, and I don't really follow his YouTube channel these days, mostly because of the sort of extra gum flapping, really. But
yeah, that's
Eddie
kind of
too.
how
Whenever,
I see it.
yeah,
I'm subscribed, but I don't. All his videos, I'm like, if it seems very clickbaity, I'm not gonna watch it. But I do enjoy his when he goes to competitions and he does his behind the scenes stuff. Hanging out with Stoltmans and Brian Shaw.
Yeah,
I like that stuff.
I think that was like, I think last year Arnold. What the competition was, and he would just in commentary in the back behind this comment, just before things happened, he would predict them. He would say, "Oh, that's someone's going to get hurt there," and "Oh, this guy's going to do well." He was like an oracle. He knew exactly what's going to happen because he's a clever guy and he knows everything about the sport.
Yeah, like that.
To make a commentary, make himself like. Yeah.
That happened during the what was it, the log lift championship? Not last year, 2018, when no, it was the axle. I'm sorry, it was the axle press when BB was going to break the axle press.
Yeah.
He missed it, but like Eddie saw exactly what BB's problem was with the axle. And that's what makes him so interesting, because you're right, he is a man who knows what he's doing. I just, wish he would drop the act a bit sometimes.
Exactly, yeah.
The reason why I also want to talk to you was, we've always been getting into it already, but you're very informed on the sport. And when I first actually joined the Strongman Reddit, I did see that you did rewatch threads for all the older World's Strongest Man shows. And I thought
Yeah,
that
some
was
years ago,
really
I think it
cool.
was like 2016, we did this. We watched all the old World's Strongest Mans and competitions, and we then shared our thoughts on those.
Yeah, and I saw that you put like interesting tidbits in there when certain countries were represented in the finals. When they stopped, like, oh, this is the last time we had a Finnish person in the finals, or this year we didn't have any U.S. representatives. I thought that was really cool. And you talked about you were watching this as a kid. Did you actually start from the watching this in the first year in 1977, or when did
No,
you
I,
when
wa-
you
I
first
wasn't.
start?
I wasn't born then. I was born in 1980, which puts me. I think I don't remember the first one I saw, but I have a pretty good guess which would be 1986 because that was the first one. It was on Finnish TV because Ilkka Nummista was competing, and he had made quite a splash on the strongman and the powerlifting scene in Finland. He used to be like what is it, a paddler or canoe rower. I don't know the sport in English, but he represented in the sport in Finland. And then when he got a little bit older and slower, he started power training. And he was like over 40 years old when he was the first World Strongest Man finals. And he was actually doing really well until he tore a bicep. But that was probably the first one I saw because I know I have small memories from like because there wasn't a competition in 87, but I remember bits about 88 and 89. And so I watched them with my dad, who would keep an eye on the competition. He'd call me over the couch, oh, the strongman competition is on again. And I fell in love with the sport then. And I had a bit of a pause in the early 2000s, which, because, the sport faded from the spotlight. So, but I since found the sort of archives of history in the internet, and I do enjoy the old days.
Mhm. And you said you were a big fan of John Paul. What was your favorite year?
Well, that's The 1990 was good until the last event. I think maybe 88 could be. It was quite. I think the years. I don't have a favorite year from the early ones because they're all sort of. I enjoy them all for. I know them so well, and it's sort of. I just like the whole era, right, from the 80s and the 90s, really.
You follow, well, like I said, in the mid 2000s we had the IFSA split. What about, the modern era?
I've zoned back in around 2013, 14, around those days. I had always every now and then the sport would pop into my head, and I would think, oh, I wonder who's winning now. And I was aware of Mariusz Pudzianowski's 5 titles, and I know he'd sort of gotten the record on that. And then I just realized that I can actually find these videos on the internet, and quite quickly sort of got back into it. I didn't write down the date, so I don't know exactly, but I found Reddit and other forums and those, and I started watching.
I got into the sport around 2017, like I said, like right before Eddie won
Mm.
his title. So, but then I went back and I found the Reddit. I started watching like anything I could find on YouTube, and I'm just like, this sport's awesome.
Yeah. This the show element. That's why I love Jean Paul Sigmarsson. It's sort of he's so every time he competed, he was so full of like show and energy and just put everything into it, and that's sort of sometimes really big part of the sport. And I really wish they sort of you can't fake it. You have to be. Hamilton tries to be this kind of. He talks tough into the microphone, and it's just so fake. It doesn't really work. There were some early years when Thor just shouted into the microphone, and that was just sort of awkward. You have to have sort of come naturally. And something about the sport could do. They used to have these deadlifts, like silver dollar deadlift, or those big rocks they lifted. I think in the late 90s, it looked like cavemen were deadlifting rocks, and that was really great. And I did see more of these weird and showy implements.
Hmm. You think it should kind of go back to that instead of being, standardized, where we just have, deadlift, log, atlas stones, a medley.
Yeah, definitely something that where the world record doesn't really matter because exact event like this, and you'd have to be. Of course, it would be something they can train because it's to avoid injuries and all that. But the exact implement and the exact weights and all that would be for that competition, and the point would be who's the strongest on that day. That's the strongman I like.
Yeah, the '90s definitely had a more fun vibe to it. Like I like the settings that they went to. Like I said, '93 is one of my favorites when they did
Yeah.
like this like arena setting in like Nice, like in France, and it was like like this beautiful Coliseum. They had like these weird events like throwing the cinder block over the wall. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah, and that's a throwing event. You can put Thor into that event, and he'll probably win because he knows how to throw things. But it would look for that competition, so that's exactly what I mean. And yeah, '93 looks really, really great even now. The lights and the sort of the amphitheater there, it's really great.
Maybe yeah, like I said, I was looking forward to the Strongman Classic that Giants Live was going to put on. I was hoping that they'd go back to more old school style events where it's just natural stone lifting or crazy things like that. I'd love a good silver dollar deadlift.
Yeah, exactly. That's silver dollar deadlift. That needs to come back. That's a really good looking event because you can see the bar bending and the sort of shaking and everything. It looks really, really sort of heavy.
Yeah, I think the last show I saw that dude was I think it was Ultimate Strongman. I'm not sure if it was Summer Mania or not, but I know Ronald Heinle has the world record in that. So that was really
Yeah.
cool to see it come back for a brief time at least.
Yeah.
Do you guys show other facets of strongman on TV? Like you said, we have Strongman Champions League. Do you guys show like Ultimate Strongman there?
Not on TV, no. No. I
No.
think some cable channels, I think some Strongman Champions League is on some channel, but I have to say, I zoned out of TV and TV channels so bad. I don't even know how to get access to those right now. So it's quite a niche sport, but I think you can get access if you're looking for it.
Yeah, I'm just somebody who finds it interesting to see how it's broadcasted because that's kind of what I studied in college. But I just find it interesting when it's like we're broadcasting in over 100 countries in the world. I'm like, I find that interesting because I've only ever seen it broadcast in the UK and like very
Yeah.
late at night here in the States.
Yeah, I've sometimes when traveling and I'm just in a hotel and just open the TV, I happen to see Strongman Champions League some event. It was I think Germany or something like that, in Europe in some countries. So they do have, but the problem is it's probably like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a weekday or something like that. It's quite likely.
Yeah. I have the subscription service, so I pay to watch when they put new events out on their website. So that's how I watch it because it's just not on TV here. It's kind of interesting now. I mean, I think they got some decent guys in SCL who, I think can make a splash on the world stage, but it's just about marketing yourself or networking to the Giants Live guys to get a foot in the bigger door.
Yeah, I think Krzysztof Radikowski has done a lot of Champions League.
Oh yeah, he's a four-time SCL champ.
Yeah, so he's one of the names who has also done like Giants Live World's Strongest Man, and I think he's one of those guys who's competed a lot and now is sort of paying the price for it. He has a lot of injuries.
Yeah, which is super unfortunate because he's one of my faves, but it's the thing about just time, getting older, and like you said, a lot of injuries.
Yeah,
With Matej Belshak, I know a lot of people, were giving him crap like, oh, he shouldn't have been at the Arnold Classic and whatnot. I'm like, 3 years ago, Matej Belshak was dominating in SCL. He was sixth at World's Strongest Man. He's not a lightweight. He's one of the best, circus dumbbell pressers in the world.
I think the problem really is that his hip was known to have a really serious hip injury, and people would rather have seen Rauno Heinla get the chance to sort of really shine instead of Belshak sort of crawling through it and trying.
Yeah.
I understand from a fan's point of view, but it's like it's his job, and he gets a payday from Arnold's, and he actually did a lot better than a lot of people expected.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was, worried he was going to be like JF Karan the year before, where it's like he just, dropped out of the first event, but
Yeah.
he fought through.
Yeah, it's a harsh sport. I remember how disappointed I was seeing JF Caron just limp away. Like, have him prepared for that for like most of the year, and then just first event and you're out, and that's it for that year.
But by Worlds, he did get, he clearly
Yeah,
took his time and he rehabbed himself very well because, fourth
yeah,
in Worlds, and then he dominated the Canadian circuit all summer long. So I'm like, whatever kind of rehab he's doing, it's doing wonders for him.
yeah.
And he's another guy who's up in his late 30s, and he also did a lot of competing in SCL a couple of years ago too. So, it's interesting how some guys can, do like 30, 40 contests a year and, be fine. And then some guys do like 4 contests and get badly injured all the time.
I think there's some kind of medium probably between the sort of extremes, but yeah, it's of course and luck. If you a lot of things are just your focus lifts for a moment, or your grip is just slightly off and you lift and something just, or maybe last night you couldn't, there was traffic outside, someone was honking the horn and you couldn't sleep and your body is sort of tense and something breaks. It's a lot of those things that you can minimize the risk, but sometimes you can't avoid it completely.
Absolutely. So it's so easy as fans for YouTube comments or whatever to like criticize, and it's like you're right. This is their profession. They're professionals, and you just slip or you move the wrong way, and that's a huge injury.
Yeah, and these guys are deadlifting 400 kilos and sandbags, lifting Atlas stones like from 100 to 200 kilos and all that. The weights are so massive that it's really hard for just a casual fan to understand the strain that puts on your body. So it's easy to criticize and easy to sort of say that, oh, he should have just sat out, or maybe, oh, how did he get injured in such an easy lift? But yeah, no, that happens.
Yeah. Like I said, that's kind of why I want them to go back to the different kinds of events in Worlds, because you can kind of like get a better visual representation of how heavy something is with, like I said, a silver dollar deadlift versus a standard, the giant like globes that they use at Worlds. Like I think casual people will have a better understanding that way. Like a wooden log looks more impressive than a metal log,
Yeah, although I do prefer the globes to ordinary barbell
Oh yeah,
and
same.
plates. So
It
yeah,
just looks
because
like a standard deadlift event, and I'm like, this isn't powerlifting.
yeah, and the globes look like a circus lift, which they originally, of course, are, and I do like that. But it's quite vague how much they actually weigh. Yeah,
Have you ever gone to a strongman show live?
I haven't. There's, like I said, there's some leagues, and they're a bit far away every time, and I travel a bit, and then there's work, and I haven't managed to fit one in my schedule. So I do definitely intend to go as soon as I can manage one, but haven't had the chance.
No, I hope you get the chance eventually, because I've been to a couple, and it's great when things work. I'll say that when because like even Strongman Champions League doesn't really announce the exact location or how to get tickets for these events, but even like a local show where it's just like you go and you see the camaraderie of everybody and see these people lifting these weights. It's a good time all around.
Yeah, definitely gotta keep an eye out. I find it a bit hard to sort of, I don't know where I should keep an eye on. Where do I hear about these things? I try to be active and I try to find out, and still manage to hide from me. So it's a bit, I think that's a bit of a problem with the sport, that it needs to draw attention to itself, not just wait for people to come to it.
Yeah. Honestly, unless you're Giants Live, you never really expect a date, which is unfortunate. But I am thankful for what Giants Live has done for the sport. They used to just be in parking lots, and now they have a giant arena, a global arena tour, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's been really quick. The like Europe's Strongest Man, well, the outdoor sort of arenas just a few years ago with a small sort of stand for the audience, and now the full indoor arenas with the sort of roars of the crowd. That's really great. I do hope this current situation doesn't hurt them too bad, that people will just resume, the audience will come back, and they're not financially too badly hurt by this, because it's just started to grow, and we needed to grow more.
They've moved Europe's back to August. At this point, I'm not sure if the Strongman Classic will take place in June, but if that gets moved, it's going to be a lot of shows that are going to be like packed into the end of the year. And
Yeah, in a lot of other sports as well, and a lot of theater and all events, there's going to be a busy end of the year.
oh yeah, because like WUS Dubai was also saying that they're going to push
Yeah,
their date back. I hope they don't coincide like they were in August, because I want to see these guys
yeah,
compete at their best and perform at all these wonderful shows that they put on.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I do. I one of those things about things need to look at the show. The first WUS event in Bahrain, that was magnificent. Those sort of Mad Max style cars and everything. Well, let's not. Let's. Of course, the stage should sort of hold together, and all those little technical issues should be sanded away. But definitely they make it look good.
If somebody in a country that has a lot of money wants to give the spotlight to this weird sport, I'm all for it. I'm like, that
Yeah.
just helps us get better shows. And honestly, I think while some people don't like that WUS was putting their date so close to Europe's Strongest Man, I say competition is good. This will push the Giants live team to put on bigger, better shows.
Yeah.
Same with WUS. I mean, I hope Giants Live never gets priced out by, say, WUS, but it's always good from a fan perspective. That this will push these companies to do better, put on better shows, better live streams. At the end of the day, hopefully, I just want the athletes to be treated better.
Yeah, there is a bit of an issue here, is of course that WUS isn't trying to make a sort of living and profit as a company out of strongman. The money comes from elsewhere, so they don't have to care about sort of costs and the cost,
Hmm.
the sort of, because if the sort of athletes just prefer WUS because they get more money and get treated better, and leave Giants Live in the dust, and when the money that's running WUS gets bored and finds a new shiny thing and ends suddenly, we might be left with quite a bit less than we started with.
What I think would happen is, if that does ever happen, these guys love what they do. Yes, the money is absolutely important, but you know, if it does come to a situation where like WUS just bans or whatever, I think they wouldn't just be like, I just stick their nose up at Giants Live, like, I'm not gonna go back if you don't pay me X. Like, I do
Yeah,
believe
definitely.
that
Yeah.
they would go back, to Giants Live.
If Giants Live still stands. But anyway, I think someone will fill in the void anyway. And yes, you're right. There's definitely, the sport has been built on people who just have this passion to be strong and passion to compete and just want to be the strongest. And there will be people like that in the world. So
Oh yeah,
we've
absolutely.
sort of, Giants Live has gotten a really good, like we mentioned, like the full arenas, and now we got the live streams and all that, and sort of shaking that too bad, and then just leaving the sport. If the Wolves does that, that's bad. But you're right. There's also things that Giants Live can do. It's not just money. Just sort of use the money to make the things look better and the live streams better and all that, sort of fine tuning it, not just throwing cash at it, but sort of polishing the product. And that's definitely something they have the skills and they have the know-how and the sort of people to do.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I like about Giants Live is that, going back and learning the history of like World's Strongest Man, I think like it definitely thrives because of people like Colin Bryce and Derek
Mm.
Sadler. And like Colin Bryce clearly has like a deep love, passion, and respect for this sport. So, whatever may happen in the future, I think Colin Bryce will be there, and that's the guy, that we need for this sport to push this sport to where it was. Many people make jokes about like the space cowboy and things like that,
Hmm.
but Colin's been there
Well,
for so long.
yes, well, many people make jokes, including Colin. So that's a British sense of humor. It's completely fine for him to be the butt of the joke. So it's fine. But yes, definitely. And you can see him appear. His voice enters the sport in somewhere in the early 2000s, if you watch the old ones, and he's seen in the background and doing sort of admin for the events. And he's been there for a long time and really has he knows everybody and he knows every event and sort of how these things run. And he's really a vital guy in the sport.
No matter what federation, I think Colin has like always. I've always heard his voice, whether it be like Arnold's, Worlds, SCL, maybe not IFSA, but like for the most part, I've heard him in like even like weird obscure federations like the World Strongman Cup. I've heard his voice, so
Yeah,
he has a very large footprint on the sport.
definitely is.
I give my hats off to him. And they put on great shows over at Giants Live, and I do enjoy the behind the scenes features that they do give us on the website, and they're starting to put more on YouTube for people who don't want to pay for the service.
Yeah. I'm a subscriber to Official Strongman, the streams and the webpage. It's really for a fan of the sport. It's a good deal. So I'm a happy fan for that. So it's and especially the live streams getting better recently. And I'm really happy they had going back to the 500 kilo deadlift. I watched the live stream, and I was on the edge of my seat watching. It was really an intense event just watching on the screen.
Oh yeah. Like
I'm
they
hoping for
definitely
more.
have a flair for the cinematography. It's not just one staple camera pointed at the athlete. They got multiple cameras, crowd shots, and that really makes the atmosphere feeling amazing, even if you're just watching on your computer.
Yeah, exactly, because they have a lot of filler because they have to set up the events and set up the cameras, and then they call in and who interviews people and all that, and then you have the several camera shots. It doesn't feel like filler. It feels like we are there and it's a live event happening. So of course there will be delays. So it really brings the live atmosphere in the stream. That's a underappreciated skill, because you can just stick a camera and just tell the live stream watchers watch that, and we will, of course, Strongman fans will watch any live stream at this point, but Giants Live is really ahead of the game.
They did a watch party for the 2019 Loglift Challenge. I'm just like, yeah, it's amazing like how much they've advanced from a couple of years ago. I'm like, I love it. I always say this, it's a great time to be a strongman fan, because we get to sit through the evolution of the sport and see it take into new heights with every show.
Yes, definitely. If 80s was one golden age, this is another, because when I started watching, when we did the Reddit rewatch threads, we were sort of pining for live streams, wondering what's going on and what are these athletes, what are they like, what are they doing. I can't keep up with the YouTube content right now. I've so fallen behind on the Stoltman Brothers channel. I don't know if I have time to watch all the material we get. And that's happened just like a snap of a finger. Suddenly we shifted into a timeline where there's so much strongman content that I can't keep up. And of course, I prefer this one.
Yeah, I love it. My only thing is I wish there was a streaming service, so we can get, HD footage of those older competitions.
I think there's probably some kind of rights issue. I would imagine that some TV company owns the rights and is not interested in sort of licensing or something like that, because
I think that's what it comes down to, which is unfortunate, because a lot of these new fans, like you said, there's just like a facet of fans now who only know the strongman via YouTube. I have friends who go to the gym who's like, you ever heard of this Brian Shaw guy? And they just watch his YouTube and they've never watched a strongman competition. And they're like, that's so crazy to me.
Shaw is one of the first ones. He had a YouTube channel going into Arnold's 4 years. First did this kind of weekly thing. He had a pause of a year or a year and a half every now and then. But he was he may be probably the first big name to actually sort of bring us backstage and into his training, which is cool.
So it's so crazy to see him get on this YouTube thing before the sport blew up, and those 1 million followers are definitely deserved, because he's been
Yeah,
working.
great champion, four-time world strongest man. But I mean, the amount of work he has done for the sport in the visibility and the sort of general promotion of it, he's definitely a Hall of Famer in that as well.
Oh yeah, I kind of wish they brought back the Hall of Fame. There's only like I believe four in the quote unquote World's Strongest Man Hall of Fame when you go on their website. I mean,
Yeah, I
cool to
think
have
it's
like a WWE style like Hall of Fame kind of like ceremony where they like induct people
yeah,
into it.
yeah. They did it, like they founded it with which was like Bushanovsky and I don't remember. And then they just added Kazmaier and was it John Paul and
I think
Magnusson?
Carlson too.
Oh no, Svein Carlsen is, which is quite curious. I'm not exact. I mean, good strong man and strong guy, all that, but not. I don't know how big his impact really was. But oh yeah, Svein Carlsen is in. Yeah, yeah. I would really like to see that. And I also Bill Cashman. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's all I think comes down to the fact that the world's strongest man sort of intellectual property is basically just a TV program, and the name is owned by people who don't really care about the sport. That's a shame.
Which is unfortunate, and hopefully in the future the rights will change hands to somebody who does care. And like I said, there's so many things that they could be doing for the sport, and I feel like they're leaving money on the table. And we can hope for the betterment in the future. That's all we can kind of do as fans, just hope and wait.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we've been talking for almost an hour, and I think I'm going to call the podcast. I think this is a good point to call the podcast right here.
I think it is.
Like I said, for now I am going to call the podcast, and once again I want to say thank you for being on with me and talking about World's Strongest Man.
Yeah, this was really fun. Really flew by. So.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly. Yes.
Once again, enjoy your evening, because I believe it's 8 o'clock in Finland, correct?
It's 9 o'clock now. I forgot started, so it's even an hour later. But yeah.
Right. Well, once again, enjoy your evening, and have a good week.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Once again, guys, thank you all for listening to this episode of the podcast. Now, while Kilmore doesn't have a social media page, he is a frequent member on r/Strongman. If you would like more information on Strongman or where to get started, please check out the Strongman Reddit. It is a wealth of information from amateurs and pros alike. That's where I spend most of my time. And speaking of that, if you would like to interact with me, please follow me on Instagram at EastWolfStyle. Also in the description below are my Amazon affiliate links. If you're looking to make a purchase on Amazon, please consider using my links, as a small portion of your purchase goes to me and helps out the channel. And finally, you can listen to the podcast here on YouTube or the audio-only version on Anchor.fm, SoundCloud, Spotify, or wherever you may listen to podcasts. Thank you all for listening, and have a great day.